Hello, welcome to the 29th episode in the martial arts poetry series. For this episode, we're going to be talking about a drunken boxing movement from the Ma family called Drunkard lifts the barrel, although this movement is pretty much in every single drunken boxing style that you've probably ever seen, because it's one of the most common ones, because it's a good one. So the movement is like this. You stand in horse stance, you've got your barrel here, right? You've got your cup fist, you've got your barrel. You're going to lean over backwards as if you're picking up this barrel and throwing it behind you, or you're striking behind you with your fists. So the idea of this motion is, again, like you're picking up a barrel and hoisting it up, either to drink from or to throw over behind you. The key of this whole imagery meant to be conveyed in the poetry is that the barrel is your opponent. This is a big shuai jiao move. If you've ever seen like a suplex moves, right, you're literally picking up the opponent and then throwing them over behind you, even maybe falling to the ground with them, smash his head into the ground. It can also be used a way that I like to use it in application. You pick them up, sweep out their foot as they're midair, and turn them on their sides. Just a slightly different variant that I prefer. But this movement done is like a suplex, or it's meant to convey striking behind you, as if you went to go hit somebody and then they circle behind you. Now you're hitting behind you because you're trying to follow them, but if you try to move back too soon, right, there's all that time where they could be smacking you as you're turning around, whereas from here, this automatically turns into a backwards strike. So now they have just been jabbed in the head, and now it gives you time to turn around now that you've given them something to think about. It's kind of the same idea that when you do wrist escapes, if you only focus on the wrist escapes, they can just kind of put you in worse and more terrible locks because you're not doing anything to them. But if you get grabbed, you can punch them in the face, and that will jostle them, and then you can do your wrist escapes and then do whatever you want from there. Same kind of idea. But now to convey more about the poetry itself, the hoisting up of the barrel. The way that this is done is very intentionally trying to engage the body in a very efficient manner and a proper manner so that you don't hurt yourself doing this. So the way that we do this is imagining like you actually do have a barrel here and you're hoisting yourself to it. If I only go to pick it up with my arms, right, it's going to be very difficult to do so. So you imagine that you grab around it and then you press your hips up against it to hoist it up. So that's the first part of the movement. When we're doing it in the form, there's first smash the cups and then into lift the barrel. So there's this movement of first the hips square up with the barrel and it picks it up. Important notes to make with this is in how the body stretches and expands as we do this motion. Most people, when they go to lift things up, they have a very compressed back and they'll actually hurt their backs as they lift. Which is why in drunken boxing we emphasize sit the tailbone down. This is always reaching because as we expand through the spine, we want to get space between the vertebrae. If you have your vertebrae stacked on top of each other and touching, if you twist or do anything, they're going to be grinding on each other. So the extension is important to get space in the spinal cord so they can move around and flex and they won't be grinding on each other and causing back problems. So important notes to mention is the tailbone pointed downwards and extending. The Mingmen, right, this lower area here, should not pinch. I should not end up arching like this, like you see maybe some people do, but you want to point this down and forward as we bend over backwards. So this area is more or less flat while this is pointing down. Your chest reaches upwards as we bend over backwards because the chest is helping to pull the spine straight vertically, whereas the tailbone is pulling it downwards. So by the chest pressing up as if it's pushing something up, like we actually do have that barrel, right? We hoist up with our hips, and then as we start to lift it over, our chest starts to push it upwards. So this gets the barrel, so now its weight is on our chest. So when we get that, we have this pointed down, we have our chest pointed up, which lifts and causes the spine to elongate a little bit further, which will alleviate the lower back. And then we lean over backwards, right? Keeping the spine pulling and reaching even as far back as we go. And you can go back a little bit far, or you can go as far as comfortable for you. But typically we don't go as low as you'd see in modern wushu, where they're almost touching the floor. But for us, we're just trying to get that lifting motion. And actually, if done correctly, don't do this at home without a proper instructor. But there's been demonstrations where people actually have somebody stand on their chest to test if they're doing their structure right while they're bent over backwards. So it's less of a flowery wushu thing and more of an actual structural integrity practice, which is again all built on that poetry of lifting the barrel. The barrel's full of wine, it's big and heavy, right? So you hoist it onto your hips, lift, press it upwards with the chest as we start our drink. So it's all about body mechanics, structural integrity, even in awkward positions. You can basically think about drunken boxing as like an exaggerated Taijiquan, whereas Taiji likes to maintain straight verticality. Drunken boxing will maintain that verticality while not straight. So there's this kind of upwards pressing feeling while there's this downwards pressing feeling. But if you notice, my chest is right above my feet where it would be falling here, right? So I'm not leaning backwards, but I'm pressing the hips forward so that my chest and the point where I would be holding the barrel is right above my feet. So that's what the secret of maintaining that verticality is. There needs to be the point that is maintaining the pressure, the point that's bearing the weight, needs to fall with the center of gravity between your feet. So that is Drunkard lifts the barrel. I'm sure you'll be happy to see the application in the following applications video. See you then.